Yo, it's ODB, our lifestyle podcast. This is MiniTruckin Magazine issue number 53, May 9/6. Shaun Carlson, rest in peace, and Shartsis shot it. You have Weld Racing, they end up with four. Well, you have Weld that has four covers with Weld wheels, and there's basically between Weld and Weld Racing, which are probably the same, you have 5 total covers over the course of time. This is one of them. I've said in these recent videos, if you've been watching, if you haven't, please go back and check them out. 96 is arguably one of the best years for covers and features. I mean, it's just an epic year. We haven't even got to the halfway point. This is one of my least favorite cover trucks from that year. As far as the cover itself, I like it, but there's so many others out of the other 10 out of 12. Dude, fire. When we get to the one that's probably my least favorite, I'll talk about it. But this is a really good issue. Now, for whatever reason, this one was one, I want to say, one that wasn't a part of my collection that I got a lot of issues from Jim from Mini Madness that came through Jeff. I talked about that, way early on in this series. So we're on episode or issue 53, and we're May 96, so let's jump in. Now, the one downfall I have with this one is my cover is ripped, but hey, still have the issue, and that's what's important. You got Soundstream here. You got the truck body parts, which was an ad that ran for a very long time. Jumping right in, table of contents, man, look at that Sonoma. These trucks, whether you had the tilt bed, whether you had the step side or the fleet side, man, very cool trucks. I always like these Sonomas with the wheels and that grill, and you don't see these as much, especially these days. You have about 10 features in this issue, and that's like a jam-packed. You've seen me talk about that when you talk about the amount of content that went into these was just a lot. California Truck Accessories, 95 S-10s on the cover, dressed in Santini paint, Wings West ground effects, Trenz manufacturing Phantom Grille, Weld Racing wheels graces the cover for the month of May, along with the alluring Shannon Doah. Photo credits go to Shartsis. So Shartsis, and then it says insert photos, John Butler. And we'll double check. In my records, I had Shartsis, but we'll see. Sometimes they would put the main photographer there, and then in the feature itself, they'll sometimes add in that it was more than one person. So we'll look. You see the event coverage there, technical info, and the departments, of course. Quick look at the staff. You see Stillwell still there and Shartsis. Editorial by Mike. Now, if you tuned into our flip through for the last issue 52, you heard me talk about the upcoming guest this Friday on the podcast, which is basically going to be July of 2022. So, for those that watch this, 6 months or a year or 5 years down the road, we're basically right now in June 2022. And as we move into July, our first guest for the month is going to be Alan Paradise. And Alan was at the magazine at the infancy. He talks about how he basically forged that relationship with Steve. And he shot, as we saw, and we're looking here at low pulse, really clean S10. My 94 had basically the same interior, although I did not have the tack, but I had all these blanks here and the factory crappy stereo and things like that. But if you think back, Alan shot a good amount of the first 10 covers. So, I don't want to give it all away. You guys definitely need to tune in. Alan will also talk about the creation. So clean. 9.4. He'll talk about the creation of the MiniTruckin logo. I think I maybe hinted at that in the last episode, but I mean, Alan is a tremendous force in our scene, going back to the infancy. You know, I know he's moved on, and, you know, he's doing all kinds of other things, and he'll talk about that. But what I mean by that is, in the early days, you know, you think about MiniTruckin where it is today, arguably wouldn't be where it is today without Alan, without his vision kind of dovetailing into what Steve was thinking as far as doing a spinoff of Truckin, which became this magazine, MiniTruckin. And, you know, Steve kind of fighting for it to be more than a one-shot deal. You know, if you look back at magazines, you know, they would often do, you know, spin-offs and things like that. And Brian McCormick talked about that when we had him on the podcast. They'd have kind of sister publications and stuff, but sometimes it'd be a one-shot deal. And you'll still see that today, where magazines, you know, or publishers will put together a book, so to speak, you know, which is a magazine, and it'll be out on newsstands, and it's a one-time thing, or it's quarterly, or, you know, annually. But long story short, they certainly pushed the envelope, and that resulted in us being able to go through potentially all of these 269 issues. Steve Millen's Sport Parts Here Inc. spices up the latest Ford Ranger Splash. You heard me mention recently how popular these trucks were. Shout out to MiniTruck Matt. He's got a cool channel. He's growing what he's doing. He has a white Ford Splash that looks stock. Man, you know, my buddy, as I said, had one of these, and I spent a lot of days riding in an extended cab. Now that I think back, he had a fleet side bed. But my buddy David, Epic Trucks, and I think back to that time period when, you know, a lot of advertising going on with the yellow trucks and things, you know, in this era. I don't know if it was 96, 97, 98. I mean, you guys will remember the yellow Sony Walkmans, you know, the yellow Ford Splash. If you look back at a lot of magazines, the advertising was yellow and things like that, and that's what's kind of etched in my mind. Here's Carlisle All Truck 96 Nats. We saw that ad recently. You see the camping there, the minis, the famous Ford Ranger. Spook and Shine, the Inland Empire's finest show, up for the annual Spook and Shine. Always talking to my homie Tim Davis about just the era we grew up in, and some of the stuff that kind of influenced. And I was watching an old Johnny Garage Johnson video just a little while ago, kind of doing my normal work and having it playing and watching it. And it made me think, you know, he was talking about skating, you know, how today it kind of has a different term, you know, riding low. But he was talking about how in that era, or in the earlier era, it kind of representing the wheels sticking out with that offset wheel. And, you know, Tim and I talk about the Mustang that was in Menace to Society, and a lot of guys had those kind of reverse offset wheels and stuff. And it's just cool to be able to reminisce back on all that, because it's etched in our minds, and the different Instagram pages that you may follow and stuff, you know, you'll see so much of that as just like the popularity is at an all-time high. Here we're just going through some of the features. This one is Big Business, ultra clean van. Dude, epic stuff. These are the Cortez wheels, Colorado Custom. And you can definitely tell a Colorado Custom wheel when you see it. RA. If you think about how many clean vehicles they built over the years, man. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, East Coast 5.0 low rollers. This truck always reminds me, which I do think it's different, the lethal injection truck that was super low, which I think was something prior, and it transformed. It's kind of hard. That's one thing I like about MiniTruckin, though. It's kind of difficult sometimes to go, okay, well, this truck became that truck, and then that became that. That's one of the cool things I love about our scene, because, you know, people, I mean, these trucks, they were one thing and then they flipped to something else, and the stories and things like that, and it's pretty cool. So it's sometimes it's not easy to piece together, this truck was that truck, that was featured that year. Oh yeah, then it got redone. Cruz-in 9.5 by Lance. Photography, Shartsis and Lance. And I forgot to mention if she was the one that was, I forgot to mention her name, if she was on that last issue that I went through. Super clean, square body S-10's getting harder to find. You see some killer components. Is that Lanzar? My buddy Paul and I talk about, old school stereo and things, and it's kind of cool. Recent cover truck there. The Outer Limits. It's pretty cool how, you could run old school car stereo. I mean, you find it on eBay and Marketplace and people selling it in different Facebook groups and stuff. But at the same time, it's pretty affordable these days, components and things, and the technology has gotten so good that, you can have I have a Bluetooth deal that plugs into my amp for my Lincoln. It's like you don't even have to have a head unit, And it is cool, like in an old school mini truck, you might want to have some of the older items, components, head unit, but it's also cool that if you go with newer stuff, the technology is just mind-blowing. So Crave This, Bowtie mini fans. So I don't necessarily dislike this truck. I think this truck's cool. It's clean. It's obviously got some amazing names attached to it, including Santini, the Trenz grill, which I'm a huge fan of those. It's just this year, when you look at all 12 of the issues, it's like, how do you pick which ones are your least favorite cover trucks? And, this one is definitely a cool truck, but when you look at the others and you put them all together, you just go, man, 96, dude. Crazy. And that says Stanford striping. And I think I follow him. Is Steve Stanford, right? I think I follow him through my Lincoln page. Going from memory, but you can see here the Denon DCT 750 AM FM CD player, MTX Thunder 280s. And I've said this before, I have the same MTX amp in my full-size truck that I had in the early to mid-2000s. You see the Santini right there. That I had in the early 2000s in my blue 9.5 Suburban. I had one issue with it many, many years ago. The amp went out, I think, going to a show, which sucked. I forget if we were going to Showfest and the amp went out. And literally when the amp went out, I was like, okay, I had nothing. Because I had the highs and everything running through it. So I did send it in, and it kind of, was a couple weeks without music. And MTX fixed it, whatever it was. It was a, power supply or solder or something, and whatever it was, and boom. Knock on wood, I've had that amp ever since then, and I guarantee that amp is going on 20 years old. It's awesome. Fear the Reaper, dropped and rolling on wires. So this kind of goes back to what I said recently, about wire wheels, that although they didn't always mix depending on, the crowd you were in. This is a style that we all love, and most of us love. And if this stuff were to roll back out today, or this to be at a show, everybody's going to give this thing a thumbs up. It's going to get love. I thought about even running wires or obtaining a set and swapping them out here and there on my 90 Mazda 9.0. Had a couple people text me and say, hey, you recently asked about the name, Jason, of the 90 Mazda. You're trying to think of a name, maybe think of something with Papa Smurf tied in. I've been thinking about that. I kind of like 9 and then -OH because it's 9.0. You guys know I love the 80s and 90s, but I'm still thinking. This truck is super cool to me. Again, even with the complexity of it is like, okay, it doesn't have a camper shell, it doesn't have a topper, right? But it's got a side tilt hood, it's got a tilt bed, it's got a scissor deal on the tonneau, It's got a roll bar. It's topless, full detailed frame, going for broke. I mean, dude, this thing is, there's a lot going on, okay? And I like it. And sometimes, you know, if there's a lot going on, you kind of go, it's too much. I mean, dude, I think we all agree there's a lot going on, right? That's an easy statement. But this truck is badass, in my opinion. I like the colors. I like the graphic on it. You know, maybe not my favorite there. You know, kind of got that Saved by the Bell theme going on. But I love this stuff. So I would rock this. I definitely would. But that's something cool from this era of trucks that, you know, when I talk about the toppers and the walkthroughs and all that stuff, I love that it has that whole extra facet to it versus it just being an empty bed, you know, whether it's cut or not cut. Speaking of cut or not cut here, I remember reading, you know, these tech articles back in the day, just thinking, man, if my S-10 was that low, how happy I would be. You know, how sick would it be just to have that? And oh, by the way, I get to look at this, which the light's on it every day, thanks to Tim Davis for the OG poster. And, you know, you think about some of those early components, kind of similar in gauges, I guess you could kind of say. But, you know, many of us could think back to say, man, if I could just have my truck bagged, and then it gets bagged and you're like, oh, man, if I could just body drop it, you know, I'd be a little bit lower, man. You wouldn't see the frame and it would just be flat and I'd be good. And then it's like, okay, well, that wasn't enough. Then it was like, well, now I need to detail my frame. Now I need to. And that's the life of a mini trucker right there. It's just hard to stop. I'm getting to a point now where I definitely have to stop. You know, I acquired that other truck, and my nephew was asking me about it the other day, and he goes, well, what are you going to do to it? And I was like, man, I'd love to do this and that. And my son just started laughing. He goes, your mom's going to kill you. And I was like, well, I'm going to daily drive it. And obviously I got to fix the AC and do a few things. But at some point you have to kind of go, man, you can't just keep building every single thing. There's not enough time or money out there for most of us. Slam Mazda. Super sick. You can kind of see they expanded there a little bit on the reader's rides. Super sick stuff. Here you got that paper that I've talked about a little bit that in these issues they kind of were using. I don't know, you know, what the deal was with that. Again, I think it's like a cost type thing. It actually isn't bad. I mean, you could tell, the only reason you can tell is it feels a little bit different, but also it kind of ages a little bit different. You can kind of see there, almost feels like a newspaper type, a little thicker than newspaper. Speaking of that, how long will newspapers be around? I'm sure their subscribers are just super low in different states and things like that. I mean, I know there are people that still read it religiously every day, but damn, man. Here you go, another clean 9.4 latest craze. I used to go on their website all the time back in the day. I mean, I'm talking like 97, 98. I mean, I lived on these different websites, and when Severed first had their website, their old website up, you know, I lived on these websites, like scouring. I remember when Aftermath started and they first had their website, you know, and they had it broken down. Art and Noise, I think, too, had one. You know, they had it broken down by chapters and the reps, and they had photos of the cars. And that was like in the old, I don't know if it was Java or what it was with the old scripting. And, you know, there's a couple websites like Brian from Grinder TV. Shout out to Brian. Love what he's doing on social media right now. And of course, through, they've got a new podcast. You can check out Grinder TV or Custom Life. And, you know, I was talking to Brian, and Brian had sent me some websites, and he goes, man, I don't know if you know, but these are still up. And I had been on them. I have actually a folder saved in my favorites that goes back to like the late 90s, early 2000s. And occasionally I'll go through it and click the links, and there'll be dead links, and I'll delete them. But yeah. Here you go. Talk about a lot going on, man. That's pretty freaking sick. I can't do any of that stuff, so I look at it and say, dude, fire. As I'm looking at this, I got an eBay alert for something that was delivered. eBay is an addiction. And it wasn't a magazine. It wasn't MiniTruckin related. It's automotive related, but not MiniTruckin related. Here you go with some old ads. I'm super stoked. I just finished cleaning up. When I say cleaning up, I go through all of the audio. When I record with a guest, I literally go through every second, every minute, and I look at the audio. I clean it up. I delete out any of the normal little sounds that we make when we talk, when we kind of go, and all of that stuff. And for the most part, I get about 90, I'd say about 95, 98% of all that. I clean it up really good. Here you see Mr. T, Kevin and Bean from K-Rock, Sinbad, Elvis, Popeye. But, the Allen audio, I'm just going to give you guys a heads up. It's 2 hours. So Mike and I are not going to do our normal intro. Because you add a normal intro where we want to do 30, then we go 45 or 50, and then you add, it's a 3-hour episode. That's a lot, right? So I'm going to do a quick episode for Friday, or a quick intro rather. But Allen's is gold, man. I mean, he literally, I think, many of you guys just love the history of this stuff like I do. And I just ask, like, maybe you're a holdout. You're like, I don't want to listen to podcasts. I'm a video kind of guy. I don't care about just audio. Please, please, please check it out on Friday. It's going to be great. Just search OLP via your favorite podcast app. 96 was the first year. I'm 99% sure. 96 was the first because 96... 97, 98, 99, 2000. I went to the 5th annual in 2000. And I'm pretty sure the shirt that I have from 2000 was the 5th annual. But epic show. Epic. You guys know that. Here you go. That's the first cover with Colorado Custom Wheels I've talked about recently. And you've got... Yeah, so mine also is missing the back cover, by the way. So... if anybody's got this issue in perfect condition and you want to do some horse trading, I've got a bunch of other issues. I'd trade you one out, even an early one, from my you never know pile, as Papa Smurf would call it. So, MiniTruckin Magazine, May. So getting to mid-year 1996, a fantastic year. Contrary to what you think, I do like this truck. I think it's pretty awesome. I would take it any day. But when you see the rest of 96 and you look back at ones we've already looked at, dude, it's hard to pick your least favorite from this year. Awesome model, awesome truck, awesome insert photo, good people. And then, oh, by the way, one thing I did want to clarify, what I'll do is jump back in here. I was pretty certain, as I said earlier, so we'll go to the cover, Crave This, number 50, if I can do it with one hand. A lot of times there, as I said, they'll mention who the photographer was. So what I want to do here is go back, and you see here, okay, I went through painstakingly, looked at all this. Now, I did this a while ago. Photography, Mike Shartsis and Shaun Carlson. Although you saw in the TOC, the table of contents, it did say Shartsis. More than likely, the reason I'm guessing is they did want to give the main person up in that area. Maybe they ran, they only had so many spaces for words. But also, Shartsis may have come in and did some of the detailed photos, right? I don't know exactly why, again, in the table of contents, they do that. But that threw me off early on when I was like basically going through and figuring out how many people shot what cover and whatever. So there you can see photo credits go to Mike Shartsis, insert photo there. It doesn't say about Carlson. That's not a diss in any way, but again, I'm sure they tried to keep this a little bit kind of concise. But you can see there, that's where I got the detail, and you got to go through all the issues to get all the facts, and I've done it. We'll continue to release some of that data, so to speak, so that you guys will have all the insight that we have. Our lifestyle podcast, also known as OLP. You know how we do. We out here. Peace.